Welcome back. I'm your host at Navy Legends, and I want to begin this one with a targeting problem the IRGC Naval Force has been working on since the first Nimitz-class carrier entered the Persian Gulf. Not how to sink an American carrier. That has never been a realistic near-term objective, but how to force one to stop flying aircraft for a defined window. The IRGC's answer: you do not need to penetrate the carrier's defensive envelope. You need a threat so severe and so multi-domain that her commanding officer has no choice but to suspend flight operations and devote the ship's full defensive capability to threat management. A carrier fighting for survival is a carrier not generating sorties. 45 minutes without sorties in a contested Gulf environment neutralizes the carrier's operational presence, temporarily, but demonstrably, without a single warhead needing to reach the flight deck. On November 7, 2027, the IRGC's operational planning staff tested that theory against the USS George Washington. The date is November 7, 2027. The time is 3:28 local. The central Persian Gulf, approximately 130 nautical miles southeast of Bahrain, and 180 nautical miles northwest of the port of Bandar Abbas. The USS George Washington, CVN-73, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, is operating as the flagship of Carrier Strike Group 2, deployed to the Gulf in response to a significant escalation in IRGC-linked regional proxy activity over the preceding 3 weeks. Her strike group screen consists of the guided missile cruiser USS Hugh City, CG-66, positioned 14 nautical miles to the northwest on the primary threat axis from Iran. The guided missile destroyers USS Farragut, DDG-99, and USS Winston S. Churchill, DDG-81, on the northern and southern screening positions, and the frigate USS Belknap, FFG-64, operating 18 nautical miles to the east on the secondary screen. The George Washington is conducting routine flight operations, her air wing cycling through combat air patrol rotations and maritime strike readiness missions. She is making 18 knots on a course of 270 degrees. Her flight deck is at moderate operations tempo, 2 FA-18Fs in the landing pattern, 1 E-2D Hawkeye airborne on the northern station, 2 F-35Cs spotted on the bow catapults for the next launch cycle. The IRGC's operational concept for November 7th had been in final preparation for 19 days. Its defining feature, the characteristic that distinguished it from every previous IRGC naval attack against U.S. assets, was the integration of 2 threat vectors that had previously been employed separately. The BAR-2 autonomous surface vehicle, refined after its combat debut in the Red Sea engagement against USS Gravely 4 months prior, and the Fateh 110D anti-ship ballistic missile, previously employed in the Gulf and Arabian Sea against destroyer-class targets. Combining them against a carrier strike group in the confined geometry of the Persian Gulf required a targeting solution of considerable precision. The Gulf's shallow depth, its dense commercial traffic, and the compressed geographic distances between launch positions and target-created constraints that an open ocean engagement would not impose. The IRGC's planning staff had spent 19 days working those constraints into a coordinated engagement timeline. 22 BAR-2 vehicles had been deployed from 2 IRGC logistics vessels operating under commercial registry in the Gulf's merchant shipping lanes, where their presence provided radar concealment. Deployed over the side at 2:51, running at 3 knots on AIP drives toward pre-programmed holding positions in the George Washington's track corridor for 37 minutes. At 3:28:09, the activation signal reached all 22 vehicles. Engines to full speed. Seekers active. 22 BAR-2 vehicles, each carrying a 210-kilogram shaped charge with a Nixie notch filter, accelerating to 36 knots. Simultaneously, not 2 minutes later, not 30 seconds later, simultaneously, the IRGC Aerospace Force's mobile launchers in Hormozgan Province fired 4 Fateh 110D solid-fuel ballistic missiles. The launches were staggered over 18 seconds to produce a compressed arrival window at the target. Their target datum, the George Washington's projected position in 12 minutes, computed from the carrier's known course and speed, as monitored by IRGC maritime surveillance over the preceding 6 hours. The USS Hugh City's SPY-1B V radar detected both threat components within 4 seconds of each other. The Fateh 110D launch signatures appeared at 3:28:14, ballistic tracks ascending steeply from the Iranian coastline, bearing 052 degrees, range approximately 200 to 80 kilometers. The Bar 2 surface contacts appeared at 03:28:17, 16 contacts initially, at ranges between 22 and 31 nautical miles, bearing 048 to 071 degrees, accelerating rapidly. The remaining 6 Bar 2 contacts, positioned deeper in the commercial traffic shadow, would not be detected by the Hugh City's surface search radar for another 41 seconds, when their acceleration out of the traffic background elevated their Doppler return above the clutter threshold. The George Washington's commanding officer received the threat picture simultaneously and made the call within 6 seconds. All flight operations suspended. Aircraft in the landing pattern directed to divert immediately to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Aircraft on the catapults stood down. Ship to maximum speed on course 220 degrees southwest, away from the primary threat axis, and the Air Defense Commander authorization transmitted to Hugh City for immediate weapons free against both threat categories. The FA-18Fs in the landing pattern, 2 aircraft, both with insufficient fuel to reach Al Udeid without immediate divert, acknowledged the divert order and turned southwest. The E-2D Hawkeye on the northern station assumed an elevated orbit to maintain radar coverage of the developing engagement. The 2 F-35Cs on the bow catapults were stood down, and the deck crew began moving them off the catapults to clear the bow for damage control positioning. The Fateh 110D engagement was the Hugh City's primary defensive requirement. 4 ballistic tracks arriving in a compressed window. The Hugh City's SM-3 Block 2A inventory was committed. 8 rounds, 2 per track, in a ripple sequence that began at 03:28:44, 30 seconds after first detection. The exo-atmospheric intercept window for Fateh 110D targets launched from Hormozgan province at this range was favorable. The Hugh City had geometry that placed her intercept corridor in the missile's mid-course phase, where the MARV was still ballistic and not yet executing terminal maneuvers. The engagement conditions were as close to optimal as the small-sized crew of the Hugh City could manage, while simultaneously processing the surface threat picture. 3 of 4 Fateh 110D re-entry vehicles were intercepted cleanly by SM-3 Block 2A kinetic intercept vehicles between 03:31:44 and 03:32:09. The intercepts occurred at altitudes between 84 and 103 kilometers. The KKV's body-to-body impacts reducing all 3 warhead sections to fragments that dispersed harmlessly across 200-kilometer debris fields above the Gulf. The 4th Fateh 110D, the last in the compressed salvo, was engaged by its primary SM-3 IIA at 03:32:14. The intercept was partial. The KKV struck the re-entry vehicle's aft section, destroying the attitude control system and the terminal guidance electronics, but leaving the 480-kilogram warhead section structurally intact on a free-fall ballistic trajectory. The backup SM-3 IIA, the second round assigned to this track, achieved a proximity detonation at 31 meters from the falling warhead section at 03:32:21, insufficient for warhead destruction at this standoff, but sufficient to impart a lateral impulse that deflected the warhead section's fall trajectory 1.8 degrees from its original ballistic path. One deflected, partially intact warhead section falling toward the Persian Gulf. Its impact ellipse, recomputed on the Hugh City's tactical display, centered 420 meters east of the George Washington's projected position at time of impact. The carrier was maneuvering at maximum speed on course 220. She was moving away from that ellipse at 31 knots. The warhead section impacted the Persian Gulf at 3:32:58, 610 meters off the George Washington's starboard quarter. The 480-kilogram hardened steel mass at terminal velocity produced a water column 170 meters high and a pressure wave that reached the carrier's hull as a 1.2 G shock impulse. On the George Washington's flight deck, the two F-35Cs being moved off the bow, catapults shifted on their wheel chocks, the 1.2 G transient exceeding the static friction of the chock-to-deck interface momentarily before the aircraft settled. Neither aircraft moved more than 8 centimeters. Both were secured without incident. In the carrier's engineering spaces, a steamline coupling in the No. 3 auxiliary machinery space fractured at its brazed joint, a known material vulnerability that had been flagged in the previous maintenance cycle, but had not yet been scheduled for replacement. Steam at 400 degrees and 600 pounds per square inch entered the auxiliary machinery space through the fractured coupling. The automatic isolation valve on that steam line activated in 0.9 seconds, limiting the steam release to approximately 14 seconds of flow before isolation was complete. 2 engineering watch personnel in the adjacent passageway sustained thermal injuries from the brief steam release, one to the forearms, one to the face and neck, before they could clear the space. Both were ambulatory and received treatment in the ship's medical bay. 5 additional sailors across the strike group sustained minor injuries from the shock impulse. The George Washington's flight operations were suspended. She had not lost propulsion. She had not lost combat systems. She had a fractured steam coupling in an auxiliary machinery space and 7 injured sailors. She was, by any objective military assessment, still a combat-capable warship. But her flight deck was not launching aircraft. And it would not launch aircraft until the surface threat was resolved. The Bahar 2 surface engagement had been developing simultaneously. While the ballistic track engagement consumed the Hugh City's SM-3 IIA inventory and the attention of her air defense team, the USS Farragut and USS Winston S. Churchill had assumed primary responsibility for the surface threat axis. By 3:29:04, 47 seconds after first Bar 2 contact detection, both destroyers had their 5-inch Mark 45 guns in action against the contacts at extended range, while their Aegis combat systems built engagement-quality fire control solutions on the surface picture. The full contact count was established at 03:29:58. 22 Bar 2 vehicles spread across a 23-degree arc, bearing 048 to 071 degrees at ranges between 18 and 27 nautical miles from the George Washington. The vehicles were in 3 loose groupings, a configuration the wire guidance operators had selected to force the defending ships to split their gun engagement sectors and prevent a single gun mount from sweeping the entire contact arc with continuous fire. The Farragut's 5-inch gun engaged the northern group. 8 contacts at 24 to 27 nautical miles. The Churchill's 5-inch gun engaged the central group. 9 contacts at 19 to 24 nautical miles. The Hugh City, whose SM-3 engagement had concluded, assumed responsibility for the southern group. 5 contacts at 18 to 21 nautical miles, approaching on a bearing that brought them closest to the George Washington's current position. Both Farragut and Churchill launched ESSM rounds at 3:30:41 as the leading contacts entered the 16 nautical mile ESSM engagement envelope. 6 rounds from Farragut against the 3 closest northern contacts. 4 rounds from Churchill against the 2 closest central contacts. 5 ESSM intercepts. The small surface targets in daylight comparable sensor conditions presented acquisition solutions within the ESSM's engagement parameters. 4 vehicles neutralized. 1 ESSM proximity detonation. close enough to destroy the vehicle's guidance electronics, but not its propulsion, produced a contact that continued northeast without guidance, decelerating as its programmed evasion maneuver logic failed to execute. The drifting contact was tracked and subsequently rendered inoperable by a Mark 38 chain gun burst at 03:35:11. The 5-inch gun engagements over the next 12 minutes produced systematic attrition of the swarm. The gun crews on both Farragut and Churchill maintained maximum fire discipline, engaging contacts at the edge of effective range, using fire solutions refined by the SPY-1D radar, accepting the reduced per-round probability at extended range in exchange for the time advantage that earlier engagement provided. Between 3:29:58 and 3:41:27, the combined gunfire from all three screen ships accounted for 11 confirmed Bar 2 contacts at ranges between 8 and 23 nautical miles. 11 contacts neutralized by 5-inch gun and ESSM. 11 remaining. Bearing 050 to 068. Range 6.4 to 11.2 nautical miles. Speed 36 knots. Time to George Washington's current position, between 6 and 9 minutes. The MH-60R Seahawk from HSM-74. Call sign Sabre 41, launched from the George Washington's flight deck at 03:29:33, 90 seconds into the engagement, had been running a systematic hellfire engagement against the Northern Contact Group since 03:31:07. Its crew had neutralized 5 contacts in 11 minutes of sustained engagement, methodically working through the swarm's leading elements with AGM-114 rounds. 3 Hellfire rounds remaining. The combined fire, Mk-38 chain guns now active on all 3 screen ships as contacts entered 5-kilometer range. Phalanx CIWS systems tracking the closest contacts. The helicopters remaining Hellfires targeting the rearmost vehicles reduced the active count from 11 to 3 between 03:41:27 and 03:43:44. 3 contacts, all bearing 056 degrees, directly from the northeast, the approach bearing most favorable to the George Washington's position. Ranges 4.1, 3.3, and 2.1 nautical miles from the carrier's hull. Time to hull contact, between 2 and 3 minutes. The Churchill's forward phalanx engaged the closest contact at 3,800 meters range at 03:43:49. Clean neutralization, the CIWS burst struck the vehicle amidships at 3,200 meters, the shaped charge detonating at 3,000 meters in a flash that the George Washington's bridge crew could see from their position, 2.1 nautical miles southwest. The Farragut's aft phalanx engaged the second contact at 3,100 meters range. The burst was effective at 2,700 meters. Vehicle neutralized. Detonation at 2,600 meters. Debris impact on the Gulf surface, 1.8 nautical miles from the George Washington's starboard beam, the third contact. The one at 2.1 nautical miles from the carrier, the closest of the 3. The contact that had been threading through the geometry between the Churchill and the Farragut, and had emerged from behind the Churchill's own hull mask to approach the carrier from the northwest, was acquired by the George Washington's own forward, Phalanx CYWS, at 3:44:02. Range 2,800 meters. Speed 34 knots. The carrier's CIWS had been tracking this contact for 90 seconds, but had been unable to fire due to the fratricide geometry created by the Churchill's position between the CIWS and the incoming vehicle. As the Churchill cleared the firing line at 3:44:02, the George Washington's phalanx fired immediately. A 1.4-second burst. 104 rounds of 20 millimeters at 2,800 meters range. 61 rounds struck the Bar 2 at 2,300 meters from the carrier's hull. The vehicle's propulsion unit was destroyed by direct hits to the outboard motor assembly. The guidance electronics were severed by fragment penetration through the hull. The vehicle decelerated from 34 knots to 0 in approximately 12 seconds, its remaining momentum carrying it to a stop 1,940 meters from the George Washington's starboard bow. The shaped charge warhead, 210 kilograms, armed impact fuse, live, did not detonate. The fuse required a minimum striking velocity of 11 knots to initiate. The vehicle had decelerated below that threshold before it reached the carrier's hull. The warhead drifted in the Persian Gulf 1,940 meters from the George Washington, an ordnance disposal problem rather than a combat threat. The engagement was over at 3:44:17, 16 minutes and 8 seconds after the activation of the first Bar 2 vehicle. 22 vehicles deployed, 21 neutralized by combined gun, ESSM, Hellfire, and CIWS engagement. 1 disabled and drifting, warhead intact, unarmed by fuse logic, EOD tasked. 4 Fateh 110D ballistic missiles, 3 intercepted cleanly, 1 deflected near miss at 610 meters from the carrier's hull. The George Washington's flight operations resumed at 3:58, 30 minutes after suspension. The 2 F-35Cs launched at 4:02 and 4:04. The 2 FA-18Fs diverted to Al Udeidi returned at 5:14 and 5:19. By 6 o'clock, the air wing was fully operational and generating sorties, 30 minutes. The IRGC's operational plan had required a 45-minute suspension of carrier flight operations to achieve its strategic objective, a window long enough for IRGC-affiliated forces in the lower Gulf to execute a second phase operation that depended on the absence of U.S. carrier-based air cover. The actual suspension lasted 30 minutes, 15 minutes short of the required window. The second phase operation, the details of which U.S. signals intelligence had partially reconstructed by 6:30, did not execute. The window was too short. The retaliatory authorization came from the strike group commander at 4:09, 41 minutes after the Fateh 110D launches. The targeting package had been pre-built and continuously updated through the crisis period. 4 categories: the Fateh 110D mobile launcher operating areas in Hormozgan province, the IRGC Naval Force, BAR, 2 logistics infrastructure at Bandar Lenge, from which the launching vessels had been resupplied, the Wire Guidance Operations Center at Qeshm Island that had managed the Bahar 2 swarm in real time, and the IRGC Aerospace Force command node at Bandar Abbas that had coordinated the combined operation. At 4:22:17, 54 minutes after the first Fateh 110D launch, 12 Tomahawk Block 5 rounds from the Farragut, Churchill, and Hugh City left their VLS cells. 4 rounds targeting Hormozgan province launcher operating areas. 3 rounds targeting the Bandar Lenge logistics facility. 2 rounds targeting the Qeshm Island operations center. 3 rounds targeting the Bandar Abbas command node. The Hormozgan province launcher strike produced 2 confirmed TEL positions destroyed, both occupied at the time of strike, confirmed by targeting pod imagery from 2 FA-18Fs that had been vectored to the target area by the E-2D Hawkeye for pre-strike reconnaissance. 1 TEL position was empty. The launcher had fired its Fateh 110D rounds and relocated under the IRGC's standard post-launch dispersal protocol, executed within 15 minutes of the ballistic launch. The 4th aim point, a pre-surveyed launch preparation area, was struck as planned, but showed no military vehicle occupancy in the targeting pod's thermal imagery at the moment of impact. The Bandar Lenge facility took all 3 Tomahawk rounds within a 22-second window. Maintenance building, pier crane, and fuel storage compound all confirmed impacted, with secondary combustion in the fuel section. The 2 logistics vessels that had launched the Bar 2 swarm were still underway in the commercial lanes, their AIS positions tracked continuously. A follow-on NSM strike from USS Belknap at 4:34 targeted both at sea. One was rendered inoperable by direct impact at 4:58. The second activated its emergency beacon and was subsequently boarded by combined maritime forces at 7:44. The Qeshm Island Operations Center and Bandar Abbas Command Node were struck between 5:07 and 5:13. Both showed cessation of IRGC operational communications traffic within seconds of impact. Neither resumed on known frequencies in the 96 hours following the strikes. In Tehran, the IRGC's public affairs arm claimed the operation as a successful strategic demonstration and asserted the George Washington ceased all military activities for an extended period. Without acknowledging Bar 2 losses, the SM-3 intercept rate, or that flight operations resumed after 30 minutes rather than 45. The statement was read closely in Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Tokyo, and Seoul, in every capital assessing what a carrier's temporary operational unavailability means for their own security calculus. Here at Navy Legends, the November 7th engagement refines the targeting logic we opened with. The IRGC's theory was architecturally correct. A simultaneous ballistic plus surface attack does force carrier flight operation suspension. The George Washington suspended operations for 30 minutes. The theory worked. What it underestimated was the speed of the strike group's combined defensive response. SM-3 IIA 3 for 4 on Fateh 110D, Bar 2 attrition from distributed gun and ESSM fire across multiple platforms, and the final phalanx engagement that stopped the closest vehicle at 1,940 meters, 15 minutes short of the required 45. The second phase operation did not launch. The IRGC will note that the fractured steam coupling in the George Washington's auxiliary machinery space was not caused by a weapon. It was caused by the 1.2 G shock impulse from the deflected Fateh 110D at 610 meters. And if the warhead section had impacted 210 meters closer, at 400 meters rather than 610, the shock impulse would have been approximately 3.8 G rather than 1.2 G. At 3.8 grams, fractured steam couplings become fractured propulsion shaft bearings. A carrier without propulsion integrity is not a carrier making 31-knot evasive maneuvers. The margin was 400 meters, one SM-3 proximity detonation at 31 meters, one lateral deflection impulse, 400 meters between a 1.2 G impulse and a 3.8 G one, between 30 minutes of suspended flight operations and a carrier that cannot move. Stay informed. Stay vigilant. I'll see you in the next one.